So you are able to listen.
Yes, sir.
So we'll start our class. Okay. Yes. Yes. So if you remember, so the last class we started this, the amplitudes and other things also. Okay. So then, we have found out that the peak values, there is a problem like, the peak value may be same, but the time history may look entirely different itself. So now for that purpose, so what people started was this concept of, the spectrum itself. There are several ways to come, construct a spectrum. So Fourier response, power, wavelet, and Hilbert-Wang. So Fourier, these are all standard in electrical signal processing. So they also use these type of things. But in our earthquake engineering, the most important thing is the this concept of the response spectrum. This is a very novel the concept. So which was done, and I have also shown you also. So here, what is that we do? So what are our basis functions here? So how we are getting the frequency content of the ground motion? See how we are getting a frequency content of ground motion. What did we say last class?
By considering the basis function as a single degree of freedom system.
So here the basis function is single degree of freedom system. So what single degree of freedom system does to the earthquake acceleration time history? Yeah. What it does?
It will attenuate the resonance frequency and suppresses the remaining all frequencies.
It will not attenuate, it will amplify. Okay. So it amplifies its own natural frequency, and other things, it suppresses. So that can be used as a, a filter. So essentially single degree of freedom system is nothing but a filter. So if you want to talk in terms of, the signal processing terminology. Okay. So this is what our things are there, and I have also shown you, so like you see how the base acceleration say the same acceleration time history. If we give to a 1 second system how it vibrates, to a 5 second system how it vibrates, so all those things also we have seen, and some important things also we have seen. Say like for example, if this is the base acceleration, say if the time period is very very small, say then it looks exactly the same things you may get also. So this concept is used in instrumentation. Okay, so when the seismometers and other things, when the manufacturers say, so the instrument also is like a single degree of freedom system. So they design such that their time periods will be very low, such that whatever how the ground vibrates, the same thing instrument also captures same to same as the the ground motion. So this also is one interesting thing. And finally say, so we got all the the response spectra constructions, and we have also seen some important properties, that is asymptotic properties also we have seen. Okay. See, because in response spectra, x-axis is not fixed actually. The time period, it can go from 0 and it can go up to infinity. Okay, so because x-axis is not fixed, so what happens is when the x-axis is not fixed, say, so these asymptotic properties becomes very important in mathematics. You see, generally a function, say. So like you say, as t tends to 0, what happens to that function? If t tends to infinity, say, okay, so what happens to that function? So this is what the asymptotic properties we say. So we have found out that spectral displacements as t tends to infinity, so it come irrespective of your damping and other things also, it approaches the peak ground displacement. So this is a very important property. And of course, as t tends to 0, say, it goes towards 0. So this is the important property of the displacement. Now similarly, velocity also same like this. PGV it goes, but t tends to 0, it becomes 0. But spectral acceleration is exactly opposite actually. Okay, as t tends to 0, say, it goes towards the peak ground. You see the acceleration. Sometimes because it is t tends to 0, right? So sometimes this also we call as ZPA, zero period acceleration also. Okay. So this is also word people use. They don't call as a peak ground acceleration. They will call as ZPA, or sometimes the Z value. In our IS code also they will give Z value. They say what is that Z is nothing but It is a p ground acceleration only, okay, or 0 period acceleration also. And of course, as t tends to infinity, say everything goes to 0 itself. So acceleration is reverse. Other things are all straightforward. Okay, so as a k, so omega tends to infinity or t tends to 0. So spectral displacement, spectral velocity, both of them goes towards 0. But whereas this goes towards a PGA or ZPA also. Okay, and whereas other side, say when t tends to infinity, so your spectral displacement goes to PGD, spectral velocity goes to PGV, and spectral acceleration, you see, it goes towards 0 kind of a thing, which we have. Okay, so these are the important asymptotic properties of response spectra, which all of you should remember. Okay, if you are in earthquake engineering, say this is very important. Many times in comprehensive and other things, many students you followed it, they can't answer this question. They are very, very important. Okay, so you can prove this also mathematically. Okay, I will show you for once. Other things, you can try. Okay, see, I will just show you. Now, see, like for example, say if I want to find out for the spectral displacement. Okay, so now I want to find out the asymptotic property of u of t. Now how do I find out? So u of t, the expression is given here. So what we want is limit, say omega tends to 0 or t tends to infinity. Okay, so this u of t, where it the maximum value, where it approaches. Okay, so this has to be estimated. So the maximum value. So now how do we calculate here? So omega tends to 0, say what happens to this expression? See, when omega is 0, what happens to this quantity? See, when omega is tending to 0, what will happen? E to the power of psi eta omega t minus tau. It goes to
1.
It goes to 1. Okay, and now where is omega here? So omega is in the denominator also. Okay, so this expression becomes, you see, 1 by omega n root of, you see, 1 minus psi square. So integral whatever 0 to t is there, so ug double dot of tau, say then you have this sine omega you followed, right? That t minus tau, and then I think I will write here maybe. So these expressions, if I write nicely, so if I write nicely this expression, say, so this becomes, you see, 1 by omega n. Okay, so 1 minus psi square is there, so 0 to t, so ug double dot, say for tau, that e to the power of minus, that becomes 1. So we have sine this omega n. Okay, 1 minus psi square, and then t minus tau d tau. So this is the expression. So now omega is also in the denominator. So now what we do, right, is 1 by 1 minus psi square, say. Okay, so 0 to t, so ug double dot. So if I take omega n inside, okay, so if I write like this, so sine omega n 1 minus psi square. So this entire expression itself, if I take it inside, like omega d itself. Okay, if I write properly, say, so this is omega d. Okay, so if I write ug double dot of tau sine omega d t minus tau, say in denominator also we have omega d. So this expression is omega d. So I will write below omega d t minus tau, and then t minus tau d tau. Okay, so and of course limit omega d tends to 0, say. So now what happens in this expression? So 0 to t ug double dot, say of tau, and then t minus tau d tau. Okay, then we have sine omega d t minus tau, and denominator also omega d t minus tau. So now this quantity, say, as omega d tends to 0, where it will go? Now what is this rule? Limit omega d
1.
tends to 0,
1.
sine theta by theta, what happens? It becomes 1. Okay, so finally what happens? This is my expression I have. So this is acceleration. Now this is a time. So when I multiply, anyway t is this one, so tau is there. Say when you multiply acceleration with the time, what do you get?
Velocity.
Velocity you get. And then what is the integral of velocity?
Displacement.
So that will be nothing but you followed, right, the displacement rate. So this becomes UG of t itself. So what is the maximum value of UT of max is nothing but the maximum of this value, so which is nothing but is a p ground displacement actually. Okay, so this is how you can show mathematically also, as limit omega tends to 0, say your u of t max, it goes towards same as UG of t max. UG is nothing but your ground displacement, and maximum value is nothing but is p ground displacement itself. Okay, so you can prove that, you see, so limit omega tends to 0, omega n or omega d. Okay, so our u of t, say it is same as UG of t, so the response spectrum means it is a peak value. Okay, so the maximum value you have to take, so that becomes same as this one, which is same as your PGD. Okay, so this is a proof actual. So mathematically also it shows, data also obviously it follows. And now what will happen to this expression? So what will happen to this expression as omega d tends to 0? Okay, so this entire quantity, say if I write as omega d or omega whatever is there, say, okay, so omega d or something, and now as omega d tends to 0 or omega n tends to 0, say, now what happens? This expression, what happens when omega tends to 0? This quantity and this quantity, so what happens to these two quantities?
1.
They become 1. Okay, now here there is no omega in the second expression, so you are having only sine this one. So when omega is 0, so what happens to sine? Sine 0 is, what is the value of sine?
0.
0. So this entire second expression, say it just vanishes actually. Now when you come to the first expression, what do we get? What is cos of 0?
1.
Cos of 0 is 1, so this also becomes 1, this also becomes 1. So my u dot of t, say it just simply integral of UG double dot of tau d tau actually. So this is expression I get. So what is the integral of acceleration?
Velocity.
So now, so obviously your u dot of t will be same as UG dot of t, and the maximum value of u dot of t will be same as you followed, right, the PGV. So my spectral velocity, say it automatically goes towards PGV. You followed. So you can derive. Now when it comes to acceleration, say now as omega tends to 0, what happens to acceleration?
0.
Why? See this expression. So where is omega? Numerator. Okay, here also there is an omega is the numerator. So as omega tends to 0, say, so the entire expression it goes to 0. So which means you followed it, the total acceleration, so it will be 0. So the maximum value is 0. So omega tends to infinity. So your spectral acceleration, say it goes towards 0. So you can prove like this. Now you can prove other way around also. Now omega tends to sorry, what you no, sorry, omega tends to 0. I'm sorry. Okay, so omega tends to 0, so spectral acceleration, you see, goes towards 0 itself. Okay, so now similarly, say you can derive so omega tends to infinity. What will happen to spectral displacement? What will happen to spectral velocity? What will happen to spectral acceleration? Okay, so you people derive mathematically, and then you show already the answer. So when omega tends to infinity, so what happens to spectral displacement? From the plots we have
0.
seen, right? This is 0, this is 0. What will be spectral acceleration?
PGA.
PGA. So this you prove. Okay, you prove mathematically. So I have done for one case, you do for another case, which is straightforward. Okay, so see, looking at these expressions, and then you have to do all the mathematical operations, so you should get the same answer. Okay, so you people try. I will give you as a the assignment. You can plot and then you can verify yourself. So this end I'm asking you, that is t tends to 0 or omega tends to infinity, because in our expressions we have omega, so we write in terms of omega itself. Okay, so this so this I have proved. So you prove this first one. Okay, so this you can try. Yeah. So now another most important thing, what to do in our this theory also, like this is my acceleration, say, okay, omega n square, this concept came from Fourier series. So if I have a function, say a sine omega t, okay, now what will be x dot of t? What will be its derivative?
A omega cos omega t.
A omega cos omega t. Okay, What will be the second derivative?
minus a omega square sin omega t.
Minus a omega square, once again sin omega t comes actual. But now if you look at only the amplitudes, say, so the amplitude of x of t is a. Okay, what is amplitude of velocity? See, sine and cos, both of them are same because they will vary from -1 to 1 itself. So amplitude is a times omega. And what is amplitude of x double dot of t? No.
A omega square.
A omega square. Sine also you can neglect actual. Okay, so what does it tells you? So if amplitude of x of t is a, say, so I can write x of t as omega a, x double dot of t as omega square into a itself actual. Okay, so it tells us the most important thing is so the velocity is nothing but omega into displacement. If I know the displacement, say, so I can write as omega into if x of t this a, say, is spectral displacement. So my spectral velocity, so which is maximum value, I can write as omega into sd. The spectral acceleration, say, will be simply omega square into s of d itself. So this is a concept. Of course, this is valid for sinusoidals. This type of simple things. Sine and cos, we can write, if I know the amplitude of x, say, I can find out amplitude of velocity and acceleration simply by multiplying this omega into sd, omega square into sd. So I will get all the three quantities. So now the same concept in olden days, what happened was, the computer power was very less. So to find out response spectra, you have to solve those Duhamel's integrals, and then you have to solve for each and every single degree of freedom system. So it was all time consuming and all problematic things was there. So in those days, what they did was they used to calculate only spectral displacement, okay, and then multiply omega by sd. Say, I will get spectral velocity. They used to call this as pseudo spectral velocity, because you are not calculating the exact value. Simply you are spectral displacement, you are multiplying by omega, say. So pseudo spectral velocity. So this they call as pseudo spectral acceleration. So these are all spectral accelerations. Okay, these are all the exact things. But whereas these things have been found out only from the displacement, and one can also show like this is my equation, say. Okay, so now here if I damping is very small, if damping is very small, the first term can be neglected actually. So I can write as omega n square into un of t. So the maximum value, say, I can do like this, and my spectral acceleration is I can write as omega square into spectral displacement. So this we call as pseudo spectral acceleration. So now what is the error between pseudo spectral acceleration and spectral acceleration? Pseudo spectral acceleration is this figure, omega n square into s of t. What is the exact spectral acceleration? So to compute exact spectral acceleration, what is the difference between these two?
2 psi omega u dot t.
So this is a term. So if damping is small, then the difference will be very small. For zero damping, so then both of them will be exact. Okay. If the damping is very you follow, right, large value or something, then both of them will be entirely different. Okay. So spectral acceleration is different. Pseudo spectral acceleration is entirely different itself. Now similarly, pseudo spectral velocity. So we have written, right, pseudo spectral velocity is also omega into spectral displacement. So this is valid for simple sinusoid. But if we see mathematically also, so this is my spectral displacement, which comes from the Duhamel's integral. Okay. So now this portion, say omega n into 1 minus I square, if you take this side actually, so this becomes omega d into sd, kind of a thing here. And then, the right hand side, say, so this integral anyway you followed it, it has the units of, the velocity itself. And if the damping is very small, say, one can show that it is same as, the velocity itself. So you can show here itself this expression, say. Okay. So this is my the velocity expression. So when damping is 0, so when damping is 0, what happens is in this expression, so you can see here. So if damping is 0, okay, so now what happens is so this term vanishes, and this term also vanishes, say. This term goes away. Now when damping is 0, say, 1 second, I will just ask them to stop. Just 1 second, you please be there. You people are there?
Yes, sir.
So now I think now if you see this integral, say, okay. So if you see this integral, so when damping is 0, say, okay. So now what happens is, so these terms and these terms will go with both the integrals, both of them will be same. Only thing will be sine will be there, okay. So now when you take the amplitudes, sine and cos will have the same, the amplitude. It will be 1 or -1 itself. So one can show that both of them will be exactly the same, and we can prove that the spectral displacement say. So this will be omega into SD will be same as you followed, right? Pseudo spectral velocity itself. But these things are all valid for the light damped systems only. Okay, so I can write these expressions say for light damped systems. But if the damping is high, say, then spectral velocity and pseudo spectral velocity will have a lot of difference, and even spectral acceleration and pseudo spectral acceleration, say, we will be having you followed, right, lot of difference between these two itself. So this is what the pseudo acceleration spectra you see has been plotted here, and here is a pseudo velocity response spectra. Okay, spectral velocity different, pseudo spectral velocity is entirely different itself. And then you can see, so this here we have plotted the spectral acceleration to pseudo spectral acceleration, the false values. Okay, now when the damping is 0, say, what is the ratio? So this ratio when damping is almost 0, okay, or 0.02, say, very, very small value. So both of them are looking exactly same. But when damping is 5% damping, say, that is for RCC structures we use. Now you can see there is a for large natural time periods, say, so you have this type of problem when you are having 10% damping. Then you can see if you are having a system like a very tall building, say 20 seconds or 15 seconds, or maybe in this range also, you will see a lot of you follow, right, the variations. For 0.3 also, 30% damping, say, then you can see the differences can be extremely you follow, right, huge. So if you are designing some systems which have very high damping, see in ordinary our civil engineering structures, steel means we use 2%, RCC means 5% we use, soil means 10% damping. But if you are using some type of systems, tuned mass dampers and others comes for vibration, which have very high damping values, and if you want to design such type of structures, then you should go for spectral acceleration, not for pseudo spectral the acceleration, because the differences can be extremely high. You can see 1.6, almost 1.5 times, 50% increases in the forces. Okay, so this you have to be very, very careful. Now this also spectral velocity to pseudo spectral velocity. So this is also very a typical graph actual. Okay, so the ideal thing will be one you followed. So this is ideal one. But the spectral velocity, the problem is when the damping is 0 also, say, then also when you are having time periods, right, in around 1 second or something, you may have exact values. But when your things are minus 0.2, you follow low natural time periods or above 10 seconds, say, then you can see there are huge the variations will be there. So your spectral velocity, pseudo spectral velocity, they will be entirely different itself. Okay, so you have to be very careful where you are there. Suppose if you are lying in this range, then it's perfectly fine. But this portion and this portion, say, you can have very large variations in spectral velocity and pseudo spectral. But this side no need to worry, because spectral velocity is you followed, right, 1 PSV times this itself. But here the values are extremely high itself. Okay. Now similarly, so generally in our engineering, in our courts and everybody you followed, and many people they just left and right use these terms like spectral acceleration, pseudo spectral acceleration. They say both of them are same. Spectral velocity, pseudo spectral velocity, both of them are same, like that. They will be presenting. But the spectral velocity is different. Pseudo spectral velocity is different. Spectral acceleration is different. Pseudo spectral acceleration is entirely different itself. Okay, so this you have to be very, very careful in design. And of course, spectral displacement is related to deformation, and velocity is related to energy, and spectral acceleration, say, the base shear, that our IS code formula is Z by 2 I by R, you followed it, and all other things comes into picture. Okay, so these are some of the pseudo spectral accelerations, okay, which I am showing you here. So if you plot for Koina earthquakes, which I showed you long back, right? The time histories, you know, they look, you see, like this actually, and all asymptotic. Now, how do you know that whatever you have plotted is correct or not? So how do you verify from the response spectra? How to verify? See, how do you know that whatever I have plotted is correct or not? So how do we do?
Compare the PGA value.
So PGA, how you will compare? That means, you know, see what is our benchmark, you know, what is the benchmark? So how do you know that whatever you have plotted is correct or not? So how do you verify?
Time period at 0.
So that means, you know, asymptotic properties. Okay, so this is you have to verify. Now what is asymptotic property of response spectra? Pseudo spectral acceleration. As omega tends to 0, what should be the value? Just now we have shown you, right? Omega tends to 0, what will happen to spectral acceleration? It should go to, see these things. So what happens as omega tends to 0 or t tends to infinity? Your spectral acceleration should go towards 0. Whereas t omega tends to infinity, the spectral acceleration should go towards, you see, PGA. So you can easily verify from this graph. So as omega tends to infinity, say, so this value should go towards their corresponding, you know, PGAs. But whereas here they all should start from 0. So this is a benchmark. So okay, so now I have plotted you the longitudinal, transverse and vertical. Okay, so transverse component PGA, this is going towards 0.5 G, and this is going to some 0.6 times G, whereas vertical is going to some 0.3 or 0.4 G or something. So if you just memorize these values, 0.6, 0.5 and 0.3, I have shown you the time histories also previously. Okay, so if I see this Koina time histories, say. So now what are the PGAs? Can you see here? Longitudinal component, what is the PGA?
0.61.
0.61, 0.47, 0.34. So you should get same number there also. Okay, 0.61, 0.47 and then 0.34. Okay. So you can check also, verify here. So now you can see it is almost 0.61, 0.47, which is close to 0.5 and then 0.34. So that means whatever you have plotted is, you know, correct actually. So this is like, you know, a thumb rule we use. So somebody has plotted the response spectra, say, we ask him, you know, you look at the time history and then you just verify PGA asymptotic property. If they are fine, that means whatever figure you have got is correct actually. Okay, so this is how we evaluate, check the correctness of the response spectra. And now by looking at this figure set, tell me what does this Koina is trying to tell you. Now you look at the frequency content and you can say, like Koina earthquakes, what type of structures will be damaged, or, you know, what is your comment on the frequency content?
Frequency near to 10 will have more damage.
No, what damage? Let's see, where is what is the frequency content of this earthquake or this time histories? Where my energy is there?
At nearer to 10.
Nearer to 10 hertz. So now you tell me what type of buildings, you know, are dangerous. 10 hertz means what type of buildings will have natural frequency of 10 hertz?
One-story building.
Huh?
Single story.
Single story buildings you followed, right? Suppose same figure, both the figures are same. Here I have plotted with time period, here we have plotted with the frequency. Okay, so you can verify. So here the Koina earthquake, if you see the longitudinal components, the most of the energy is all high frequency energy actually. Okay, so almost you know, 5 hertz onwards it starts, and then you see 10 hertz, 20, 25 hertz, or up to 30 hertz also energy you followed, it is very high for the Koina earthquake. Okay, this is also very important concept. And now this is for the Uttarkashi. I showed you already the time histories, and we have plotted. I'm showing you with time period. You can plot with respect to, you know, what is that frequency also. Now, how do you verify that they are correct or not? No.
Asymptotic value.
Asymptotic, as t tends to 0, so it should go towards a PGA, or omega tends to infinity. So you can verify. I have already plotted you the time histories, right? Uttarkashi, do this earthquake also. So these are the things for Uttarkashi. I have plotted only for one component there. So PGA you followed, right? I think longitudinal component of that. This is Batwari. Okay. This is Srinagar. So you can see the 3 time histories. These are the PGAs. So the response spectra are, you know, like this. Okay. And now what is your comment when you look at Sri? Now Uttarkashi, say what is your comment on the frequency content? Then Batwari, then Srinagar. So you tell me what structures will get damaged at Uttarkashi approximately. Where are the peak values?
3-story buildings.
0.3 means you know, 3-story buildings. Then Batwari also you can say 3-story, but at Srinagar
1-story buildings.
huh?
Single-story buildings.
No, 0.1 second actually. Okay, so 0.1 second means is 0.1 times n, so single story. So now these graphs will tell you not only the frequency content of the ground motion, apart from that, say by looking at the graphs itself you can tell what type of structures will get you know, the damage, you know, during the earthquake. Like at Srinagar what type damages you can expect, Batwari, then at Uttarkashi. So these are very nice information you see provided by the response spectra. So response spectra serves you know, 2 purposes. One is you can identify the frequency content of ground motion also. This also you can identify easily. Then apart from that, your y-axis directly gives you the maximum response, maximum structural response. You followed it. Both the things you can get from the response spectra. That is the advantage. And directly you can use this response spectra in design. You know, like in our IS code, you see, we try to do this one. So this is the most important advantage of response spectra. So this graph I showed you, right? North Palm Springs and this one we found out, no? PGA here it was higher, but PGD here it was higher. So we were unable to take a decision here, which is the worst for my structure. Now this thing, if you plot the response spectra, it automatically tells you the story. So these are response spectra for the North Palm Springs. These are response spectra for the Landers earthquake. Now what is your comment? Which one you should use in the design? Which one you will use it in the design?
North Palm.
Which one? Which
North
is
Palm Springs.
The north, but that how do you take a decision? See, suppose I have a structure of you know, 2.5 second is my natural time period. Now you tell me which is the most damaging, or which one I should use for 2.5 second time period. Which is higher?
Landers.
See, 2.5 is somewhere here. Check the amplitudes. Y-axis is same. Okay. So my amplitude is this one. So for 2.5, say here amplitude is which is more dangerous? Palm Springs or Landers?
Landers.
This is the more day. Suppose I have a 1 story 1 second building. My natural frequency is 1 second. Which is more dangerous? North Palm or Landers? See, 1 second is here. 1 second is here. Which is higher? See, for 1 second, what is your
Landers?
Both of them are looking. See, the amplitude of 1 second is also somewhere you followed it 0.21 or 0.22. Here also approximately you followed it. Both are almost similar kind of a thing. You can't take a decision. Suppose I have a structure of 0.5 seconds, say. Now which one you will take for 0.5 seconds? Which is higher?
North Palm Springs.
North Palm Springs. Okay, so now response spectra, you have a lot of advantages. Okay, just to go by PGA, you are unable to decide, but now response spectra advantages. So now if you are designing a this type of a structure which has a 2.5 seconds, say you take Lander should be considered in design, but when you have this type of structure, say you take North Palm Springs in the design. Okay, so this helps you response spectra to sort out you followed it many of these the existing problems of the peak values. Okay, now these also I showed you the 4 time histories with same peak ground acceleration. Okay, so here also we had a problem like which one I should consider in design or how do I proceed. So this also, if I plot the response spectra, it looks like this. So this is say both the graphs are same, One is in ordinary linear scale, other one is in the log log scale, we say. Now you tell me which is one is the more damaging. Suppose if I have a long period structure, say something around 1 second, 2 seconds or something, which one we should consider? For 2 seconds. You can see this graph also. If I have structures which have time period more than 2 seconds, say, which is the one controls? So you can see one Peru earthquake, then some second one, then third is Mexico. Okay, then other one is Romania. This earthquake. So this is a Peru earthquake, Montenegro earthquake, Mexico, then Romania. Okay, so now which is for us 2 seconds, say, which is more damaging?
Mexico.
Mexico is the one which is damaging here. Okay, so now so depending on the time period, say, so you can decide, like for 0.1 second maybe you followed, right? This may be the one, that may be the Peru earthquake. So Peru, this may be 0.1, so this may be, you see, more than 2 seconds. So now you can take a better decision instead of just going by the PGA values itself. Okay, so this is advantage of the response spectra. So since this response spectra, as I told you, right, it's like 2 birds in 1 shot, we say, because you can get the frequency content, you also get the maximum structural response. So everybody, all the design courses, say, they have adopted this response spectra itself in the design, earthquake resistant design. Okay, so I am showing you the IS code. I think is the old shape I am showing, but now I think type 1, type 2, type 3 type of soils have come. So these are the spectral shifts. Even if atomic energy regulatory boards, the nuclear reactors, they don't follow IS 1893. They have their own, the spectral acceleration shape itself. So something like this they follow. Okay, so like this, so this has become like a, the response spectra has become so popular, and everybody has started using it in the design. But please remember, all the response spectra, whatever are plotted in the building codes, they're all pseudo spectral, accelerations. They are not spectral accelerations, although they may say it is spectral acceleration. But as long as the damping is a small, say, there is no problem. But if the damping is extremely high, like that tuned mass damper or some other special systems are there, so then you may have to use the spectral acceleration. So that is how it comes. So with this, we close our you see the response spectra. So I suggest all of you, all of you have gone that website Cosmos. This website, have you seen Cosmos, Pesmos, and others? So I showed you, right, previous class, the Cosmos website, Pesmos website also. So what I suggest all of you is you go to these websites, Cosmos, Pesmos, or even NGA West 2 also. Okay, any of these websites you go. Okay, so you download the acceleration data, and then you plot the response spectras. All the response spectra you have to plot. You have spectral displacement, spectral velocity, spectral acceleration, then pseudo spectral acceleration, then pseudo spectral velocity. The 5 response spectra you have to plot. So you take it as an assignment. Okay, so don't use existing softwares or something. If you want, you write your own code for the response spectra. It is very easy. The Duhamel's integral has to be solved. So very easy. You please try that Newmark beta, right, how to solve that integral also. So you write your own code it in MATLAB or any other software which you like, and get me these response spectra. Okay, so this itself is your assignment 1. Okay, so you download a time history. Any time history you can download from Cosmos or Pesmos or any site. Any data you can download. You get me this 5 plots of spectral displacement, velocity, acceleration, pseudo spectral acceleration, and then pseudo spectral velocity. And you plot for variety of damping values, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, right? Variety of damping. And then you also identify what's the difference between spectral velocity and pseudo spectral acceleration, and then you see the pseudo spectral acceleration itself. So this itself is your assignment 1. Okay, so fine. So now with this we close our response spectra. We will come to Fourier, the spectra itself. So this is also sometimes this is like a mathematical way. That is a classical, the way of obtaining the frequency content. And this is the most popular, everybody uses in signal processing. Okay, whenever they see any time history, say they compute this, the frequency that the Fourier, the response Fourier spectrum itself. So this basically, as already I told you, in the Fourier, this one word, it comes from the Fourier series. So where your basis functions are sine and cos. Okay, so these are my basis functions we use. Okay, so Fourier series kind of a thing. So now this is a classical, you see the Fourier transform. So if I have any signal, say ag, of t, so my Fourier transform will be, I write with this, the expression e to the power of I omega t dt. So it will have the Fourier transform, say f of omega. So this, if you expand, so e to the power of minus I theta as sine theta plus I cos, cos theta plus I sine theta kind of a thing. So what happens is you will have a real part and then you have this imaginary part actually. Okay, so it's a complex quantity you have. So the amplitudes are given by this complex part square plus real part square. Then this is the phase angle. That is a tan inverse of s by real, the imaginary part by the real part. So this is how the Fourier transforms are computed here. Okay, so now I am showing you here. So this is a signal. Okay, so your a of t, say, is sine 2 pi 0.5 times t. Okay, so this is my signal, and if I try to compute the Fourier transform, say, so sine 2 pi omega t. Okay, so this is my this one. Okay, or sine ft also we write here. So when you try to plot it, the Fourier amplitude spectra, say, you do this expansion and then you compute this amplitude and others, say. So now for here, what is the Fourier spectrum of this? What is the Fourier spectrum of this one? For the signal, which is sine 2 pi 0.5 into t. So what's the Fourier spectrum? What will be its real part? What will be its complex part? See, already the signal itself is a sinusoidal wave. So now what happens in this expansion? See, what will be its Fourier amplitude spectrum? How many frequencies are there here?
Only one.
Only one frequency only. So already itself is a Fourier series. And what is its amplitude? It is unity kind of a thing you followed, right? So this itself is a Fourier series. So what is its Fourier amplitude spectra? It is simple. You followed, right? It is 12 or whatever. And what is its frequency? 0.5 hertz, say. So the Fourier transform will be like this. So at 0.5 hertz, you will see a peak here. Okay. And then you followed it, it goes, and all other frequencies are 0, 0, 0, 0 kind of thing. This itself is a Fourier spectrum. Now if I have sine 2 pi into 2t, now the frequency has been increased, say. So the signal becomes more oscillatory kind of a thing. And then if you try to plot the Fourier amplitude spectra, which is anyway, because already it is a sinusoidal time series, right? So basis function itself is sine, your things are also fine, all other sine terms are 0 except that 2 hertz term. So at 2 hertz, say, you will see this type of a peak here in the Fourier amplitude spectra. Now similarly, say if I add two frequencies, that is 0.5 and 2t. So if I add these two graphs, this graph and the previous graph, this is slowly varying because its frequency is 0.5 hertz itself. So slowly varying wave plus this high frequency wave, say. So the wave looks something like this. And if you try to plot the Fourier amplitude spectra, you will have two frequencies only. One is at 0.5 hertz, another one is at 2 hertz. All other frequencies are 0, 0, 0, 0 kind of a thing you have. And now if I plot three frequencies, say, how does the you can see three peaks will be there in my spectrum, and you can see how the time series is looking like. How the time series is looking like now. See, previously it was only high frequency this, so now you have mixed up 2-3 waves or 4-5 waves, then the things are becoming more complicated. So if you mix several sine waves, how does the time history look like? If you mix several waves like here, okay, so if I mix several sine waves, say, which has amplitude at 0 hertz, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, you see, up to 2.5 or whatever say, then how the time series is looking like if you mix several sine waves? How it is looking?
Very complex.
Very complex.
Very complex. Now earthquake acceleration time histories, how they are looking like?
Similar to
Similar.
Earthquake, they are also complex only. So what is the idea? So how these earthquake acceleration time is, they are also looking complex. So whenever you see any complex phenomenon, say, what is that you have to understand?
a combination of
It is a combination of
Several sine curves.
several sine waves. Okay, so several sine waves of different frequencies, and their amplitudes may also be different itself. So that is the concept of, this is a Fourier response spectrum. Sorry, Fourier spectrum. So Fourier series or Fourier spectra says. So the concept is, the time histories, they look complex because if you mix several sine waves, say, with some random phase or something, you will get these type of complicated shapes. So now the idea is earthquake acceleration time history is also complex. So now the idea is maybe earthquakes, they will have all kinds of frequencies. So all combinations of several sine waves. Okay, so combination of several sine waves. So they may be followed, right? The reason for the time looking, the complex. So this is a basic philosophy. So that is how, this Fourier spectrum is originated in mathematics, also even in earthquake engineering itself. So the concept is very simple. Okay, so let me just see for this triangle rectangular function, which is a classical thing, which is very important. I will just show you it in this itself. Okay, just 1 second. So like for example, if you see any time history, so for rectangular function, so this is my Fourier transform. So f bar of omega, say, okay, is minus infinity to infinity. So f of t e to the power of I omega t dt. So this is how the Fourier spectrum is defined, and you have inverse Fourier transform also. That is f of t, say, minus infinity to infinity. So f bar omega e to the power of I omega t into dt. So this is the inverse Fourier transform, and this is just the forward transform. Okay, so this is how you followed it. You have all these the time series. And now for rectangular functions, say, how does it look like? Okay, so I will take a rectangular function here, so which is minus a by 2, and the amplitude is f naught. Okay, so this is my time. So this is the time, and then this is my functional value. Okay, so this is a function which is typically like this. It is a symmetric around the origin itself. So this is a rectangular pulse. Okay, so this is a rectangular pulse. Now what will be its Fourier transform? Okay, sinusoid and other things are very standard, but this is a very important, we will use later on also. Okay, so now f bar of omega has to be calculated. So what is f bar of omega? So this expression, so you have to evaluate this the integral. So now this integral is from minus infinity to infinity, but our rectangular function is 0 at all other places except from minus a by 2 to a by 2. Now what will happen to that integral? What will be the limits?
Minus a by 2 to a by 2.
Minus a by 2 to plus a by 2. Okay, so f naught, that is a constant. So e to the power of I omega t dt. Now you can easily evaluate this integral. Okay, so f naught is constant. It comes out. So what is the integral of e to the power of I omega t? Now what is the integral of e to the power of ax? You would have studied, right? E to the power of at. What is the integration?
E power x by a.
E to the power of x. So I omega t by I omega. You followed. Of course, minus will be there, and this you have to evaluate at a by 2 and all other things itself. Minus a by 2 plus a by 2. Okay, so you substitute, say, so you will have so f naught by I times omega. So e to the power of minus I omega a by 2 minus e to the power of I omega a by 2. Now you use that e to the power of I theta concept, right? So finally you have 2f naught by omega sine omega a by 2. So this is my Fourier transform, okay, for a rectangular pulse. Okay, so this is my f bar of the omega, f bar of omega itself. Or if you want to write in a nice fashion, say you can also write this as a times f naught, okay, sine omega a by 2 by omega a by 2. Okay, so you dump this 2 and then a, everything if you write like this, so you can also write like sine theta by theta kind of a thing also you can write. So now this is my f bar of omega, the Fourier transform of rectangular pulse actually. Okay, so if you try to plot this on a graph sheet, so how does it look like? Now this is omega here, this is the f bar of omega. And here the advantage what we had was although the Fourier transform here, what is the Fourier transform? Is it complex or it is a real quantity?
Real quantity.
So for rectangular, although Fourier transform is a complex, but when you have a rectangular pulses and it is symmetric, okay, from minus a by 2 to plus a by 2, it's a Fourier amplitude spectra is a positive quantity. There is no imaginary component at all. Okay, so now how does this plot look like? Where it will be maximum? So this is my f bar of omega. Where it will be maximum? So omega tends to 0. What happens to this value here?
AF naught.
0. It will not be 0. Why? Because what happens when omega tends to 0, say? So we have limit here. So limit, omega tends to 0. So what happens to sine theta by theta?
1.
So if it goes towards 1, say. So now what will be the value at omega is equal to 0?
AF naught.
A times f naught. Okay, so this is the value. So and of course as omega becomes very, very large, say, what happens to this value? See, omega is in the denominator. Okay, so when omega tends to infinity or very large, say, what happens to this expression?
Tends to 0.
So how it you followed it? So if you try to plot this, it is symmetric actual. Okay, so it will be, you followed it something, the triangular, it goes, you see, something like this, and the maximum value is a times, you followed it, f naught, will be there. So this is how you see the symmetric thing, and you will get this numbers itself. Now the same function, say this is same rectangular function. Now if I do small shift in time, okay, now it is not from minus a by 2 to a by 2, same amplitude is same. Okay, and let us say the distance is from the centroid, this one is t naught, and this is my a, this width is a only. Okay, the width has not decreased and amplitude also has not decreased, f naught only. Now also it is a times f naught only, there also it was a times f naught, but previously it was symmetric about the origin actually, but width was a only. You followed. Now the same thing. Now what will be the Fourier transform of this rectangular function? We have shifted in time t naught. That's all. Now what will be f bar of omega? So what will happen in the above integral? Now what will change? Now what will change? What will be the limits now?
0 to
0. Now what is the limits? So this rectangular function, now it is 0
T naught
every
minus a by 2.
Which one?
T naught minus a by 2 to T naught plus a by 2.
T naught minus a by 2, T naught plus a by 2. So these are the limits. So the integral remains the same. Only thing is the limits. So you calculate. Okay. So finally this turns out to be, okay, if you draw all the calculations, a times f naught sine omega a by 2 by omega a by 2. So this quantity also remains same. Okay, but you will have one extra thing, that is e to the power of I omega into t naught. So this is the Fourier transform. Now what has happened when you shifted in time?
Imaginary number is also.
The imaginary part has come, but what has happened? This quantity extra term which has come into this one. So this quantity you followed it, we call as, you see, a phase actually. You followed the phase shift or something like that. So now you have a real part. you also have a imaginary part also. Both of them will have become the complex also. Okay, now if we plot this function, say, so now you can see in the slide I already there. Now you can see the slides here. So now you can see the first one, say this is for the t naught is minus a by 2. That means is the first function whatever I showed you, right? So this is the first, this is for this one, so which is symmetric actually. Okay, so this the value is a times the f naught kind of a thing. So this is my the zero frequency or whatever you see we have. Now when t naught is equal to minus a by 5, so what has happened? We have real, we also have imaginary part also. You can see here how the real part is looking like, how the imaginary part is looking like. Now similarly, say when t naught is equal to a by 10, now also you can see here what is happening when t naught is shifting. Now when t naught has shifted, say what has happened? So when t naught was 0, because it was all symmetric, so we had a real quantity. But when t naught has shifted, say now you have started coming this imaginary numbers also. And then if you see this real part and imaginary part, so what is the sign? Can you observe any pattern? The real part and imaginary part, like for example, if you see this figure, say how the real part is looking like, how the imaginary part is looking like. What is that you observe here? So suppose if I take minus 5 hertz and plus 5 hertz, say what is your comment on the values, real part and imaginary part? See, what is your comment? See, we have a 0 here. Okay, so 0 is somewhere here. This is my 0 value. Now if I take 5 hertz or whatever, say somewhere here, so this value if I take, okay, now I take negative also. Now what is the value? Now what is happening for the real part? What is happening to the real part? So this frequency, then this frequency, what is the value of the real part? Same, no? And sign change also? No, they are positive or negative? See, the value at display, the value at this point actually, both of them are exactly
Positive.
So they are positive, and if this value is negative, that also will be negative actually. So now you take any value, so like at 50 hertz also, if you try to plot, right, 50 and then minus 50 also. So what is happening? Whatever may the frequency, negative frequency, positive frequency, say, what is happening to the real part? Real parts are exactly same actually, symmetric function we call. Now you look at the imaginary value. Say what is the imaginary value here? See, like for this frequency, what's the imaginary value is here. Okay, for this value, imaginary value is here. What is your comment now?
Value is same, but they are opposite signs.
They are of opposite sign. Now 50 and minus 50 also. If you see the imaginary values, say here, then here it is here. So now the values are same. So, but the sign is different. Suppose if this side, if it is 10, say, here it is minus 10. Real part, if it is 10 here, here actually it is 10 itself. What do you call these type of functions? What do you call these type of functions? Symmetric is one word. What is opposite of symmetric?
Anti-symmetric.
So real parts are all like symmetric actually, because f of minus x is same as f of x actually. Okay, but whereas asymmetric portions, f of x is same as minus of f of x. So imaginary values are asymmetric. Okay, so like you see, f of x is the same as f of minus x. Say this is symmetry. We say, suppose if f of x is minus of f of my x itself, f of minus x, sorry, is like this, then we call as asymmetric the functions itself. Now why it is so? Why it is so? So when you take the in the time domain, say what is your signal in the time domain? It is a real or complex? So in the time domain, what was our signal? So what was the signal in time domain? Is it real or complex quantity?
Real.
It is real. Okay. So in time, now when it comes to Fourier transform, you have a real part, you have imaginary part also. Now, if you want inverse Fourier transform, say IFFT, if you want to do, you have to do this integral actual. Okay, so when you do this integral, say this is a complex quantity. It has a real part and it also has an imaginary part. Now on the left hand side, this quantity is a real quantity. Okay, but whereas this is a complex quantity. So now what should happen? Now what should happen when you do the integral of a complex quantity? So now you know what will happen here. So you know what is the area under the real part? If I do the integral from minus infinity to infinity, say what is the area under the real part, and what is the area under the imaginary part?
Area under imaginary part tends to 0. I mean, positive.
Area under the imaginary part is 0 because you know where plus 10 is there, say other side it is minus 10, so they cancel off each other finally. Okay, so and the real part will be, you know, because plus 10, so that gets finally you followed it, added up itself. So this is also very you know the important thing for Fourier transform. So when the time domains, if the signal is real, okay, if the signal is real quantity, say Fourier transform will be complex. Okay, because in time domain the signal is real, the real portion, say real part of f bar omega, so this is a symmetric quantity. Okay, whereas you know the imaginary parts of f bar omega, this is you know asymmetric. Because you know the imaginary part finally has to get cancelled away. Okay, so this is also one you know the important thing itself. So this is a very important plot, you know, to show you followed, right, the importance of the spectrum itself. Okay, it's not there. So this is a very important thing itself. So now you know, so shift in time, say, so what we say is, you know, if time domain shift in time, like you know instead origin was 0, now a naught t naught or something, so in shift in time by t naught, say, so this is equivalent to, you see, amplitudes are not changing, amplitude is remaining same. Okay, that is a you know absolute value if you take this one, but shift in phase, so phase difference by you know t naught. So this is the most you know the important thing which we have observed actually. Okay, so we can make some you know the thing itself, you know some these thing also we can make. So like for example time domain, and then frequency domains. So if you try to make a comparison also, so if time domain, if it is a time shift, so if we have shifted the entire thing by t naught, say, what is happening in frequency domain, say like here, so amplitude is this one only. Okay, the amplitude, the absolute value is this one only. Only thing is, you know, the phase is getting changed. So time domain, if it is a time shift, here it is a phase shift. Okay, so e to the power of I omega, you see, t naught kind of a thing. So this is a phase shift comes. So this is one interesting property here. And then the things are linear. So Fourier transform also has this linearity property. So if I have two signals, say, if I add them in time domain, so frequency domain also it is same. Okay, so this linearity property is there. Then scaling also, so you can verify, you know, this property also. See what's the f of kt. Okay, so if you scale the signal, say, okay, so the Fourier transform you can prove that integral you can value, you know, f by k itself. So this also is a very important property of the Fourier transform. So like what is happening here is, you know, suppose if I have a same rectangular function, you can try. So I take a function like this. Okay, you compute its Fourier transform. You already, you know this type of a shape. Okay, so this is my function here. Now if I compress in time domain, say, okay, so I make this function, you followed it, very you know small kind of a thing. Okay, now the width has been decreased, so that instead of a, let us say you take a as, you know, 100 and then you reduce the a value, say, so then you know this function, if you try to plot its Fourier transform, okay, so you know it you see it will be something like this. You followed it. It expands in the frequency domain. So now as you make it very, very, peaks, let us say it has become like a direct delta function, that is a tends to 0, then the Fourier transform will be like this actually. Okay, minus infinity to infinity. So all frequencies you followed, right? It expands in the frequency domain. Suppose in time domain, if it is the duration is infinity, say huge large signal, say, then in frequency domain it becomes you see a direct delta function. Okay, so what is the property here? So if you are expanding in time, what is happening in frequency domain? So if you are expanding in time domain, say, so what is happens in frequency domain? It just
Inverse.
it just collapses actually. So if you compress in time domain, frequency domain, it is like inversely proportional itself. So you people can try. So like you already know the Fourier transform, right, of this a by 2 minus a by 2 this function. So you can plot this quantity 2f0 by omega sine omega a by 2. So finally, if you plot this function, say, okay, as a becomes very, 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 very small. So like this value, say, now if a is very, very small, basically. So a is very small. A indicates the width of your function. So as a becomes very, very small, say, okay, so what happens to frequency domain? You see it expands. So you can plot this function in MATLAB or whatever software you have, like for variety values of a value, like a is 1 second, 2 second, or 0.1 second. Then you can see these type of the nice you see the graphs itself. Okay, so in time domain, if you compress, frequency domain, you see it expands. So this is also very interesting property of the Fourier the spectrum itself. Okay. Yeah. So now another interesting property is for of course for the real function we have said already, f of t the real part has to be symmetric, and then the imaginary part has to be asymmetric also. Okay, so Fourier transform of real functions. So this is also very interesting property. So if I have f of t minus infinity to infinity, so I have f bar omega e to the power of I omega t d omega. So I have, you see, the real part. So real part is cos omega t, this expression. Then I have, you see, this function minus infinity to infinity, I will be there. So f bar of omega sin omega t d omega. Okay, this expression. So now if f of t has to be real, say, so then this should be go towards 0. So that means your real function. Okay, so this real part, this function, so this quantity, say, this will be symmetric, or mathematically we also call this as even functions. And right, cos theta also is an even function. Cos of minus theta will be same as cos of plus theta itself. So f bar of omega, say, will be same as f bar of minus omega also. And whereas the second portion, so this is asymmetric, or odd function also we say. Okay, you can also write as the f bar of omega, say, is minus f bar of omega minus omega, sorry, is you can also write like this also. So this is also very important property of the Fourier transform. And other thing is convolution integral. So convolution in time domain. Okay, so if I have a convolution integral, so which you have done in dynamics, right, the Duhamel's integral, so minus infinity to infinity, so f of tau h t minus tau d tau. Now in frequency domain, you see the convolution becomes a multiplication. So the same equation, so you can write as x bar of omega. You can prove all these things. F bar of omega, h bar of omega. Okay, so these are some interesting properties of the Fourier transform. Okay, so these real function, then we have this multiplication and all those things are there. Even in your dynamics also you should have studied. You can solve the dynamic problems in frequency domain or in the time domain. Sometimes Duhamel's integral say is very difficult to compute in the time domain. What we do is, you go to frequency domain, you multiply just these two functions, and then you do a IFFT of x bar omega, say you will get x of t also. Okay, so this is the properties of the Fourier transform. Okay, now another most property for Fourier transform is Fourier transforms, they exist. Okay, so they exist only, so this is a very, very important property. If this function, so if you have any function, you cannot expand in terms of Fourier transform. The only criteria is that function should satisfy this criteria, f of t dt. So this should be finite. You followed? So then only, the Fourier transform exists for this type of functions. So 1 second. Hello. Sir, I will call you in a class. So this will be, the finite itself. Okay, then only, the Fourier transform is valid. Okay, this is also very, the important property. So like for example, if I have a straight line, say, whether Fourier transform is possible for a straight line, y is equal to mx. See, like I have a straight line. What will be its Fourier transform?
Infinite.
You cannot have, there is no Fourier transform. The Fourier transform, the main criteria is the integral of this line should be, a finite value. Then only you can do the, the Fourier transform. Okay, this is a very important property of Fourier transforms. If the area under the function is not finite, say, then you can't do any Fourier transform itself. Okay, so these are some of the properties of, the Fourier, the transform itself. So then, this is what we call as the continuous Fourier transform. So this is the properties. Okay, so this you can do for all continuous functions, but when you are having a data set, that is a digital data or something, okay, so then you have to use, instead of continuous, say, like acceleration data, it will not be continuous. It is basically, several values will be provided to you. So then you see we use this discrete Fourier transform. Okay, so we use this discrete Fourier transform, or we also call this as a DFT. Okay, and the discrete Fourier transform, the main philosophy or the main things comes from that rectangular function, the above whatever we discussed, right? So the concept is very simple. See, we have all the discrete values, say, so your acceleration time history also, you will be having a lot of discrete values will be there like this. So what we do is, we take a rectangle kind of a thing here, and already the answer for the the rectangular function, say. So then you can easily calculate for any other functions from this the concept itself. So we use this concept for all the earthquake acceleration, the time histories and other things also. Okay. So I will stop here. Tomorrow, we will continue our discussion, and this discrete Fourier transform, we will see in great detail, in the tomorrow's class. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can ask.